Hello chess lovers, I have a very dramatic game for you played in the last round of London Chess Classic 2017. Levon Aronian with the white pieces is facing the reigning world champion Magnus Carlsen. Aronian started with d4 and e6 by Carlsen, knight f3, c5, g3, c takes d4, knight takes d4, queen b6, bishop g2, bishop c5, e3, d5, queen g4. Now white is using the absence of this bishop and is targeting black's king side, and the bishop retreats back, protecting the pawn. White castles, knight f6, queen e2, and now already when black managed to kick away this queen can develop the bishop. But Carlsen first played e5, advancing in the center and kicking away this knight. But here comes a strong response by Aronian. Queen b5 check, offering an exchange of queens and going for a favorable endgame for white. Bishop d7, of course if queen takes b5 then knight takes b5 is very unpleasant, and if knight a6, which looks very passive, c4 challenging black's center. Let's go back. After queen b5 check we see bishop d7, and now Aronian is capturing on b6, doubling black's pawns. Knight b3, knight c6, bishop d2 and bishop d6. After the game, during the interview, Carlsen said, "Bishop d6 was just absolutely awful. I missed his plan with knight c3 a4, then it just really stinks." Here comes knight c3, knight e7 and a4. White is going to place the knight on b5. Black castles, knight b5. Bishop takes b5 and a takes b5. Now white is getting this strong pawn on b5, which is controlling the c6 square and can cause black a lot of problems. Rook c8, bishop c3, h5. Carlsen is trying to create some counterplay on the king side. Rook d8, knight d2. Seeing that his knight is doing nothing on the queen side, he's bringing it on the king side. h4, knight f3, h takes g3, h takes g3, and e4. Here comes knight g5, knight g6, rook a7, and now Aronian is trying to penetrate opponent's camp. Rook b8, bishop d4, targeting the pawn on b6, bishop c5, bishop takes c5, b takes c5, c4, challenging black's center. Knight e7. Of course, now you can't capture on c4 because after rook takes d8 check, rook takes d8, black is losing this b7 pawn, and this is going to be terrible for black. Also, this pawn on e4 becomes very vulnerable. Let's go back. After c4 we see knight e7, c takes d5, and knight c8. A strong response. Carlsen is going to place the knight on d6 square and block this pawn. Rook a4, knight b6, rook a3, knight c4. He is maneuvering with his knight, and finally the knight finds its place on d6 square. But now Carlsen is also losing the pawn on c5. Rook takes c5. Black's position is becoming more and more unbearable. Right now Aronian is 2 pawns up. Rook a8, bishop h3, rook e8, rook c7, king f8, and a blunder by Aronian b6. Actually he missed that black has this rook e5 move, and it turns out that white knight has no safe square to go. A better move was playing, for example, bishop f1 and freeing this h3 square for the knight, but instead we see b6, and here comes rook e5. Aronian played knight e6 check, f takes e6, d takes e6, and now Aronian is getting this strong pawn on e6, but is this enough? Knight e8. In return, Carlsen is forming a very powerful fortress with his both knights. Rook d7, rook a5, and another blunder by Aronian b4. Actually he could force a draw in this position, but he overestimated his chances and played b4. Well, let's see how can white force a draw. First, white can capture on d6. If knight takes d6, then rook takes d6, rook d5, rook takes d5, rook takes d5, e7 check, and after king takes e7, this bishop is coming after the b7 pawn. Rook b5, bishop takes b7, rook b4, white is protecting the pawn on e4. King g2, king d6, bishop a8, planning to play b7. If g5, with the idea of playing g4 and locking this king, then white can play king h3. If rook takes b6, then bishop takes e4, rook b4, f3, and this is going to end up in a draw. White's position is very solid. But instead, he played b4, and gradually white's position is starting to deteriorate. Rook a1, rook b5, rook a8, and there it goes, the pawn on b6 drops. Bishop g4, rook d5, and after king g2, Carlsen is also capturing on b4. Rook a1, rook b5, bishop e2, rook b2, bishop g4, and there it goes, rook d2. Doubled rooks on the 7th rank are always crushing. King h3, rook takes f2, king h4. Aronian went for this final desperate king march. Bishop h3, here comes g5 check. Of course, now you can't play king g4, still protect the bishop because of this knight f6 fork. Aronian played king h5, and he is also losing the bishop on h3, king h6, rook f2, e7 check, king g8, and he tried his luck by capturing on d6, setting a very cheap trap. Now if knight takes d6, then rook a8 check, and white is managing to checkmate black king. But instead, after rook takes d6, Carlsen cold-heartedly played rook h7, and Aronian resigned. It's a pity that after such a brilliant positional play, Aronian lost this game. What is interesting, during this tournament, several times Carlsen showed that having a winning position against him is not enough. One should know how to convert the advantage into a victory. Fabiano Caruana won the London Chess Classic after beating Jan Nepomniachtchi in a playoff, and Magnus Carlsen, by beating Levon Aronian in this final round, became the overall winner of the 2017 Grand Chess Tour. I hope that you enjoyed this game. Waiting for your comments and questions. Good luck.